So, greatest of all lists are always a little bit controversial, and this might be no exception. Talking about the greatest solos, greatest guitar solos in history. And I've had some pretty strong opinions on some of these, and I've also watched videos, obviously, where people have really strong opinions. But I thought what would be interesting in this list would be to put in a great solo somewhere in there that I think people have largely slept on, and it's a great reggae solo, and some guitar aficionados watching this might already guess what that is, but it's truly an underrated solo. But you're gonna have to watch the entire video to actually get to that great solo. Now, I think the number one guitar solo is not gonna be too much of a surprise, but there's a little bit of a twist. So, in my view, in my let's call it uneducated view, the greatest guitar solo all time that I've ever seen anyway is gonna be that great guitar solo that Felix played to Led Zeppelin's Stairway to Heaven. And I know a lot of people thought Led Zeppelin's Stairway to Heaven was the greatest guitar solo all time. But when you listen to what Felix did with that, Felix from Bon Jovi, and he also has his own band. He's done a lot. He's played a lot of studio sessions. He's played for Daughtry and other bands, rock bands. Really unbelievable finger play dexterity. Just the way he plays on that guitar is just unbelievable. So Felix, now when you listen to that solo, inspired by Eddie Van Halen, inspired by the shred guys of the 1980s, and I think Felix does it just incredible. So that solo, it was both technical and melodic and expressive, which kind of captures actually the original emotion of the original Stairway to Heaven solo, but same emotion, but he amplified it, and he had that shred that just made it really beautiful and made it technically much more challenging, much more proficient. It became a guitarist's guitar solo. It wasn't just a mass popularity solo just for the layman anymore. It was now like actual guitar players are gonna listen to that and go play that again. you know. So that was just incredible. In my view, that takes the cake. That's the best guitar solo that I've ever had. So in my view, and I'm sure a lot of other people loved it as well. I mean, if you watch the original Rick Beato video with the solo, I'm sure a lot of people posted a lot of really great comments like, this is insane, unbelievable, this is incredible. So that, in my view, has gotta be the greatest guitar solo that I've ever seen. And in my view, that's gotta be the greatest guitar solo in history. A lot of very technical guitar players are studying that solo, are playing around with that solo, highly respect that solo, and I think there's a good reason why. I think there's a really good reason why to have that, to create that much noise around a guitar solo that wasn't even, necessarily from an album, that wasn't even just a guitar solo posted online. I think that tells you a lot about that guitar solo. It was explosive, just something that is a real privilege to have been able to listen to. Now, the number two guitar solo um, is, in my view, the original Stairway to Heaven solo by Jimmy Page, right? I think that really had to be just the emotion of it, just the composition of it, and the really crazy ending of the solo, really on a high note. He captured something really magnificent right there. Now, it might not be as highly technical as what Felix did on the remix, It might not be as crazy fast as Shred. It's not as crazy fast on the Shred, but what it has is it's got a certain honest, simple, raw power to it. That's probably a little bit enhanced because he doesn't try to wow you over the top with extra shred or do anything like overplay or any of that. So it gives it a more wistful, kind of historic, kind of cynic storytelling feel to it, which is really unbelievable. So that is in a lot of people's viewpoints, that's the best solo they've ever heard, and I respect that viewpoint. It makes a lot of sense. For me, it was the greatest guitar solo I'd heard too until I ran into the Felix, what Felix did with it. So in my view, this is the number two greatest guitar solo in history. Now, the number three greatest guitar solo in history, in my view, is a solo that a lot of people, a lot of guitar players, a lot of guitar experts often put right behind the original Stairway to Heaven solo. And I'm not gonna make any exception to that in this case. Oh, some people actually put it ahead. Some people think this is the greatest guitar solo of all time. And I think there's good reason to think that it's certainly a very powerful guitar solo. Some in some respects, it's more powerful than the Led Zeppelin "Stairway to Heaven" solo, and that's just really amazing. An amazing thing about what David Gilmour was able to do with this solo, and of course, it's the "Comfortably Numb" solo of the War album. And great album, great concept album. And one of the, in my view, one of the best albums in history, but also in this case with that song, definitely one of the greatest guitar solos that you can ever listen to. One of the most exquisite, well done, just unbelievable. Oh, now it's got a darker edge, right, than the Stairway to Heaven solo. It's a little bit darker. It's like this incredibly mysterious, um, kind of dark storytelling solo with a lot of sad emotional undertones and things like that. It's got a lot going on there, and there are some really classic passages in there that if you're a guitar player, you really gotta tune into, and they just play around with your mind. He's It's obviously out of the psychedelic tradition, that album. So probably around that time there was a lot of drug stuff going on around the music culture of the psychedelic genre, and that solo I think captures that feel really well. It's something that in a sense you can just kind of sink into and kind of get lost for days in that kind of universe. So I think it's a solo that we are very lucky to be able to listen to, and it's a solo that, if you're a guitar player of any kind, a guitar fan of any kind, you really gotta tune into. Now, onwards to the number four solo, greatest solo all time, and now I come to oh, I haven't come to the underrated reggae solo yet, but number four solo. Now, this is a guitar player that a lot of guitar players say is the greatest all time, um, and with good reason, with good reason. And of course, I'm talking about Jimi Hendrix. He has inspired a lot of guitar players, just like Jimmy Page with Led Zepp or David Gilmour with Pink Floyd, and Jimi Hendrix is just an unbelievable player, and he's done a lot, obviously, on the guitar. A lot of classic songs in the rock tradition. Now, on All Along the Watchtower, which might have been a cover of like a Bob Dylan or some other old school artist, but it's just an incredible song that he kind of did in a speeded up version. Um, just brought the raw emotion of the lyrics to life in a new way. And Jimi Hendrix really sang well too, an unbelievable vocalist. But I think on the guitar is where he really went wild on that song. It's just the notes are staccato fast, and he's doing. He was probably inventing shred before shred really became like a big thing. And I think a lot of the shred people that I really like that took shred into different genres like metal and things like that. Um, Probably a lot of it you can kind of see some of that in Jimi Hendrix, even though he wasn't just that. Like he was a bluesy rock kind of player, and so speed there is not the only thing. Shredding is not the only thing. There's a lot of just bluesy, blues scale, minor scale type riffs and things like that, and things that really are not so much of a priority in shred guitar. But in this solo, there are elements of shred that probably before it was even properly just a tradition of shred. Just just him expressing something on the guitar that was probably ahead of its time, and probably turned a lot of heads back then, just as it does to this day. Because if you listen to that solo, and the way that he plays the solo parts, right from the start of the song right to the end of the song, it's just hard to step away from that. An unbelievable guitar solo. In my book, the fourth greatest solo we've ever heard on the guitar. And that brings me to the final item in this list, which is the fifth greatest guitar solo all time. And here, of course, no mystery now, the underrated reggae guitar solo. And of course, I'm talking about Peter Tosh's incredible, exquisite guitar solo on Bob Marley's No Woman, No Cry. And it's an unbelievable guitar solo. Now, it's got a unique feel to it from the reggae tradition, something that it really adds there, which is kind of like this danceable, um, really just uniquely intimate feel to a guitar solo. And just the tone of that guitar on that solo. I bet he was probably playing a Les Paul, really thick tones, really great, incredible sustain. But I have no idea what kind of stuff he had in that production, because that tone is just something you remember for the rest of your life. And I think that's what that solo is. And sadly, I feel it's an underrated guitar solo because um, there isn't the over the top shred like you might get in the Felix shred solo that came first in this ranking. Um, there isn't the over the top said um, emotion of the David Gilmour Comfortably Numb solo that came third in the ranking. Um, it's not even as fast as the Jimmy Page solo that came second in the ranking. So it doesn't necessarily try to wow you with one of these tricks like speed or things like the shred, sad emotion or something like that. Um, it's got a really subtle kind of danceable emotional feel to it. But the note selection and the melody line of that solo and the balance between the highs and the lows, because he's playing some high notes and then kind of in the second half of the solo he's balancing them out with some incredible low notes on the guitar. That's just like rocking a baby to sleep. It's kind of like this really incredible, so just really gentle guitar playing with a lot of really just melodic mastery. It's a solo that if all of us try to come up with something like that from scratch without ever having heard this solo, there's a good chance none of us could ever come up with something that incredible and that sounded that sweet. So in my book, that's a really underrated solo, and with maybe with good reason, because people don't think of Bob Marley and the Wailers as kind of like a great guitar band, right? You think of them as like a great reggae band, great beats, right? Reggae is about like the beat and the bass lines and all this rhythm and things like that. So that's probably why a lot of people sleep on that solo, and you really gotta go and listen to it again to realize just what a gift it is. So that's it from me, man. 5 greatest guitar solos in history. Go check them out.